What is a complex fraction? A complex fraction is a fraction that contains fractions in its numerator and or its denominator. A complex fraction can also contain a mixed number in its numerator or denominator. And when we work with complex fractions, just as when we work with regular fractions, they must always be simplified. So here are some examples of complex fractions. The first one highlighted in green here is a complex fraction. The numerator is x plus 1/2, and as you can see, one of the terms in the numerator is a fraction. And the denominator of the fraction is 3 minus x. Well, this complex fraction only has a fraction in its numerator, but it's still a complex fraction. Now, one of the problems that students sometimes have when working with complex fractions is identifying where the main fraction bar is. So in this second example, it's hard to tell if this is 1 over 3/4 or if this is 1/3 over 4. So we have to really inspect these complex fractions to determine where the main fraction bar is. And the main fraction bar is always the longer of all the bars. So in other words, if we closely inspect this second example, we can see that the long fraction bar is here. And this is 1/3 over 4. So in other words, the numerator of this fraction is 1/3 and the denominator is 4. So this fraction has a fraction in its numerator as well. In this example, it's not so hard to distinguish where the main fraction bar is. This is 5/3 over 2/9. The numerator is 5/3, the denominator is 2/9. And in our last example here, we have the fraction x plus 1 over 2 in the numerator and x plus 1 over x in the denominator. So that puts our main fraction bar here. And this complex fraction has a fraction in the numerator and then a binomial with one of the terms as a fraction in the denominator. So these are just some examples of complex fractions. And in the next videos, we're going to cover some techniques that'll help us simplify these complex fractions. And when we simplify a complex fraction, we won't have a fraction in the numerator or the denominator.